Pay attention to this footage. October 9th, 1998, Meridian Falls, Mississippi. A high school football field, post-game. Stadium lights still blazing. The parking lot loud with horns and voices and the smell of popcorn going cold in paper bags. The school's exterior security camera is positioned above the east gymnasium door, angled down toward the back lot. The timestamp reads 10:41 p.m. The footage is grainy, the angle is wide. It covers the narrow walkway that runs along the eastern fence line and the back gate that students use as a shortcut home. A girl comes into frame, small duffel bag over one shoulder, varsity jacket, dark jeans, gold hoop earrings that catch the light for just a second before the grain swallows them. Hair tucked under a knit cap. She's holding a sports bottle in her right hand. She moves with purpose, the walk of someone who knows exactly where she's going and exactly how long it will take to get there. She pauses near the back gate, adjusts the bag on her shoulder, looks back once, not alarmed, just checking. Then she pushes the gate open, steps through, and walks off into the dark path beyond. The gate swings shut behind her and latches. The camera keeps running. 40 more seconds of empty lot. A pair of teachers pass in the background mid-conversation. A janitor wheels a trash can toward the side entrance. A car pulls out of the far row. Nothing else moves near that gate. No one follows through it. That is the last verified footage of Renata Osei. She was 17 years old, 2 months from graduation, a full scholarship waiting in Tallahassee. She had plans, the kind written in ink, not pencil. She never made it home that night. And for the next 18 years, no one could explain why. The case was opened, the leads dried up. The town moved on. And then, on a slow Saturday morning in 2016, her father climbed into an attic he hadn't touched in years and opened a yearbook he thought he already knew by heart. What he found inside would not bring her back, but it would finally give the silence a name. To understand what happened to Renata Osei, you first need to understand who she was before she disappeared. Not the version that lives on flyers and memorial pages, the real version, the one her family knew. Renata Osei was born on June 3, 1981, in Meridian Falls, the second child of Kofi and Miriam Osei, Ghanaian immigrants who had settled in Mississippi in the mid-1970s. Kofi worked at a manufacturing plant on the east side of the city. Miriam was a home health aide, long, early shifts, rarely home before dark. They raised their children in a narrow brick house on Caldwell Street with green shutters and a front porch that tilted slightly to the left. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. A kitchen that always smelled like her mother's tomato stew. From the beginning, Renata stood out, not because she pushed to be noticed, but because people found their way to her naturally. Her kindergarten teacher said she had a way of making other children feel included without being told to. If someone dropped their tray in the cafeteria, she was the first to help. She wasn't loud, she was steady. The kind of kid who made a room feel more settled just by being in it. Her grades were consistently strong. She struggled with fractions in 3rd grade and cried once over a spelling test, but she always came back. She loved books about ordinary people doing impossible things under pressure. She told her 5th grade teacher once, "I like it when the people who aren't supposed to win figure out how." That stayed with her through everything. Middle school sharpened her further. She joined the track team in 7th grade after her PE teacher clocked her sprinting to catch a bus and couldn't let it go. She ran the 200 meters and anchored the relay. Her coach said her best times came when the team was already behind. She had a gear that other runners couldn't find. By the time she entered Meridian Falls High School in 1995, she already had a reputation. Not flashy, more like a constant, the kind of person you assumed would always be there, like a landmark. She tutored underclassmen on Tuesday afternoons. She moved between every social group in the school as if the invisible walls simply didn't apply to her. She was as comfortable with the honor roll crowd as she was with the kids who spent lunch in the back parking lot. She hadn't planned on cheerleading. Her best friend Tamsin Achebe dared her sophomore year. She made the squad without difficulty. By junior year, she was co-captain. By senior year, she was running drills before the coaches arrived, managing the internal dynamics of a 12-girl squad with the calm efficiency of someone twice her age. She didn't drink, didn't chase attention. Her father joked that her list of standards was longer than his commute. She'd smile and say she knew what she was worth. She meant it without arrogance. It was simply a fact she had established about herself early and never revisited. But behind the grades and the cheerleading and the scholarship letters, there were things she didn't talk about loudly. Small discomforts, quiet adjustments, the kind of details a person notices and tucks away because she doesn't want to be dramatic. By mid-September 1998, she had started journaling again. Her mother had bought her a spiral-bound notebook over the summer, lavender cover, her name written on the inside in silver gel pen. The early entries were structured and forward-looking: scholarship prep, college checklists, notes about what she wanted her first week at university to feel like. Then the handwriting changed. Faster, more clipped. Some pages were nearly blank. The entries stopped looking like plans and started looking like observations. One, dated September 19th, read simply, "He's always somewhere nearby. Doesn't say anything. Just there." No name, no explanation, just that. She mentioned it once to Tamsin during practice, mid-conversation, pulling off her cheer shoes. You ever get the feeling someone's just watching you and waiting for something? Tamsin laughed. Renata didn't. She told her mother about someone who kept appearing near the gym, not close enough to cause a scene, just present, always there when practice let out. Miriam listened and said what most parents say when they're trying to stay calm. "Some people are just a little different, baby. It doesn't mean anything." Renata nodded. She didn't bring it up again. She adjusted quietly instead. She started taking longer routes between classes. She moved her changing spot closer to the locker room door. She began asking one of the junior girls to walk out with her after practice, something she had never done before. Small changes, the kind that don't add up until someone looks back. Then came the drawing. A Friday afternoon, folded and wedged through her locker vent. A pencil sketch, clean lines, real skill. A girl standing alone on a football field under stadium lights. No crowd, no teammates, just the girl. And in the bleachers across the field, a shadowy figure sitting and watching. No name, no writing, nothing else. She showed it to Tamsin. They shrugged it off. "Some art kid with too much time," Renata said. She crumpled it and dropped it in the hallway trash, but she looked over her shoulder twice walking to the car that evening. Her homeroom teacher, Mrs. Olanrewaju, recalled an afternoon in early October when Renata asked to use the front stairwell instead of the east corridor. No reason given, just said she preferred that way today. Mrs. Olanrewaju didn't ask questions. She thought it was a teenager's mood. It wasn't a mood. It was Renata managing quietly, rerouting, adjusting without making anyone uncomfortable. And the problem with managing quietly is that it requires no one else to notice. When no one notices, the signals don't accumulate into a record. They dissolve into the texture of a normal school day. She was leaving warnings, quiet ones. And if anyone had asked the right question at the right moment, what came next might have ended differently. That moment came on the night of the last homecoming game of the season, a Friday with just enough cool in the air to justify a jacket. The Meridian Falls Lions had won. The parking lot was loud with horns and voices. The cheerleaders packed up in the East Bleacher locker room. Renata changed quickly. Dark jeans, black Nike sneakers, her varsity jacket, the gold hoops her parents had given her for her birthday. She tucked her hair under a knit cap, slung her duffel over one shoulder, and walked out. Her best friend Tamsin saw her crossing the back lot at roughly 9:38 p.m. They had taken a group photo 15 minutes earlier, the whole squad, Renata laughing and throwing up a peace sign. Tamsin waved across the lot. Renata called back that she was taking the back gate. Faster. Her mother was cooking. She didn't want to miss it. Tamsin nodded, watched her walk toward the path. That was it. The back gate led to a narrow paved path that cut between the campus fence and a strip of trees separating the school from the Caldwell Street neighborhood. Students used it constantly. It was lit at intervals. The walk to Renata's house from the gate was less than 10 minutes. She never appeared on that street. By 10:45 p.m., Miriam had called Tamsin twice. No answer. She called two other girls from the squad. Nothing. Kofi came home from a late shift just before 11 to find his wife standing in the open doorway with the porch light on. They called the police at midnight. The officers took a report, suggested that teenagers sometimes needed space, said they'd check the usual spots and follow up in the morning. By morning, Renata's room was unchanged. Her phone charger was still in the wall. Her makeup bag was zipped on the desk. The outfit she'd set out for church on Sunday still hung on the closet door. Nothing had been packed, no bank activity, no calls outside her usual circle. She had stepped through that gate and vanished. Kofi walked the shortcut path 3 times before noon. He checked the brush on both sides, called every name in her contact list. Nothing. No phone, no torn fabric, no sign of disturbance anywhere along the route. 10 days later, 2 freshman boys spotted a pair of black sneakers just off the path. Nike Cortez, size 7, wedged between a tree root and a fallen branch. Untied. No scuffs, no damage, no blood. No footprints around them. No sign of a struggle anywhere nearby. Police logged them, combed the area for 2 hours, and found nothing else. The following morning, the department released a statement. At this time, there is no indication of foul play. Those words hit Miriam Osei like a door closing in her face. Kofi sat at the kitchen table that night with Renata's school photo and one question he couldn't stop turning over. Why would she take off her shoes? She wouldn't walk barefoot. Not Renata. Not ever. Nobody had an answer. Nobody had a suspect. The trail had gone cold before anyone thought to chase it seriously. What followed was the kind of collapse that happens slowly, in the background, while the world continues moving around it. Miriam stopped eating with any regularity. She dropped weight quickly and was admitted to the hospital twice in the spring of 1999. By June, her body had surrendered what grief had not yet taken. Cardiac arrest. She was 44 years old. People who knew her didn't need a medical explanation. They said it plainly. She waited too long for an answer, and her heart gave up waiting. Kofi buried his wife 8 months after his daughter disappeared. He drove back to Caldwell Street alone. A house that now held 2 absences instead of 1. He kept the porch light on. He kept Renata's room exactly as she had left it. He told a neighbor who offered to help clear it, "That's her room. When she comes back, I want it to feel like she never left." At school, the familiar pattern played out. Vigils, ribbons, her locker filled with notes and prayers. Then the whispers started, and they landed on Darius Coles, her boyfriend at the time. He had been quiet since she disappeared. Police questioned him twice, pulled his phone records, searched his car. He admitted to a small disagreement with Renata the week before homecoming, something about college plans and distance. But there was no evidence, no motive, nothing placing him near the path that night. He was cleared. The doubt clung to him anyway, long after the questions stopped. He left Meridian Falls after graduation and didn't come back for years. By late 1999, the missing posters had peeled off the gas station windows. The police reassigned their resources. The case remained technically open, but stopped moving. Kofi resigned from the plant in October 1999, 11 months after Renata vanished. He used the savings set aside for her university tuition to buy a second-hand computer and taught himself to search case archives. He built color-coded binders organized by year and by lead type, filled 5 feet of shelving with printed emails and handwritten letters and dead-end tip sheets. He drove to follow leads in neighboring counties. He attended conferences for families of missing children and stood at candlelight vigils for other people's daughters, holding signs with names that weren't his daughter's name, because he understood by then what those families were carrying. He told his son Edmund once, "Closure means you accept she's gone. I'm not looking for closure. I'm looking for her." The years accumulated. 2002, 2005, 2010. He took part-time work at a hardware store on the south end of town. He kept the porch light on every night. He went through her boxes once a year, not to grieve exactly, but to stay close, to confirm he hadn't missed anything. He hadn't. Not until February 2016, when he finally climbed into the attic he'd been meaning to clear for months. It was a slow Saturday morning, cold winter light through the vent window. Kofi worked through the clutter methodically, old luggage, sagging boxes, tax returns in manila envelopes. Near the back corner, half buried under an old winter coat, he found it. A cardboard box, edges soft and curling at the bottom. Her name written on the side in blue marker, underlined twice. Inside, a cheerleading medal, a dried corsage from junior prom, her school wallet with her student ID still inside, spiral notebooks sealed in plastic wrap, and at the bottom, bent slightly from the weight of everything above it, her 1998 senior yearbook. Dark maroon and gold hardcover, worn at the corners. He had looked through it before, many times, over many years. He opened it again at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold beside him. Then something stopped him. A face. Not in the center of any photo, not labeled or captioned, just there. One row behind Renata in a group shot, not facing the camera, positioned at an angle that put Renata directly in his sightline. Kofi turned the page. The same face appeared in the background of a candid near the water fountain, Renata laughing with friends in the foreground. He turned again. Bleachers. The same face in the upper corner, slightly out of focus, angled toward the track below where Renata ran. He went back through the pages slowly this time. Then again. The same boy appeared across more than 30 photographs. Different settings, different events, different times of year, but always peripheral, always at the edges, and always oriented in the same direction. Always toward her. He wasn't listed in any index, didn't appear in any club photo, honor roll listing, or student achievement page. He had almost no official footprint in the yearbook at all. But now that Kofi had seen him, he could not unsee him. A memory surfaced. Fall of 1998. Renata dropping her duffel at the front door harder than usual and mentioning over dinner that some guy kept showing up outside the gym at the end of every practice. "Doesn't talk," she said. "Just stands there." Miriam had said some kids were just shy. Kofi had nodded and let the conversation move on. He had never asked about it again. He dug deeper into the box and found a small, unsealed envelope tucked between two notebooks, unlabeled. Inside was a folded yellow form on standard school letterhead, filled out in Renata's handwriting in black ballpoint pen. He waits for me after practice every day. He doesn't speak, but he's always there. I don't know his full name. I think it's Vincent S. Dated October 2nd, 1998. 7 days before she disappeared. Her signature at the bottom. Clean, clear, confident. He turned the form over. On the back, in a different handwriting, quick, casual, almost bored, "We'll monitor." Likely harmless. Kofi sat in the attic with the form in both hands for a long time. The radio on the shelf nearby was still playing. He didn't hear it. His name was Vincent Slade, class of 1998. His yearbook portrait appeared exactly once, buried near the back of the uncaptioned student section. No senior quote, no extracurriculars, no honor roll listing. One small black and white square with a name printed beneath it. That was the entirety of his official record at Meridian Falls High School. Teachers barely remembered him. He was quiet, never caused problems, kept his head down. One described him as someone who didn't give you anything to react to. Came in, sat down, left. The art teacher, Miss Claudette Foray, remembered considerably more. Vincent spent every lunch period in her classroom asking for sketch paper. He drew people, specifically girls, specifically cheerleaders. She recalled one drawing clearly, a girl from behind, high ponytail, arms raised mid-cheer. She recognized the posture immediately. It was Renata. She asked if he'd shown it to Renata. He said no. She asked to keep it. He refused and took it with him. The drawing was never seen again. Then there was the rose incident. In September 1998, a single pink rose appeared in one of the cheerleaders' lockers with a typed note attached. "You stand where the light hits first. I see you even when you don't look." No signature. Everyone pointed in the same direction. People had seen Vincent near that section of lockers after practice. They joked about it, called him the ghost of Hallway C. Nobody treated it as anything more than that. Kofi drove to the public records office the Monday after finding the complaint form. Vincent had no criminal record in Meridian Falls from 1998, but in 2004, 6 years after Renata disappeared, he had been arrested in an adjacent county on stalking and harassment charges. Records partially restricted, but the arrest existed, and it was enough to sharpen everything. Vincent had never left Meridian Falls, never married. He still lived in the same pale green house on the north side of town with his elderly mother. Overgrown yard. Curtains always drawn. He worked overnight security at an abandoned textile warehouse downtown, alone, 5 nights a week, midnight to 6. No co-workers, no supervisor on site. Kofi also found a retired corridor supervisor named Mr. Gideon Ibarra, who confirmed without hesitation that Vincent used to stand at the far end of the east hallway every single day immediately after cheer practice ended. Same time, same position, 5 days a week. Never spoke to anyone, never moved toward anyone, just waited there, watching the door the cheerleaders came out of. Kofi asked if Ibarra had ever reported it. He shook his head slowly. He wasn't doing anything, he said. He was just watching. Kofi walked into the Meridian Falls Police Department the following week with his folder, his binders, and 18 years of quiet determination on his face. A young detective named Priya Shankar, recently assigned to cold cases, listened to all of it. The yearbook pattern, the complaint form, the art room drawings, the public records on Vincent Slade. Something about the weight of what Kofi had assembled made her stop and pay attention. She reopened the file. At the top of the evidence inventory was an item that had been logged in October 1998 and never forensically tested. A red varsity jacket, women's small, found near the back gate path 10 days after Renata disappeared. No blood at the time, no suspect. It had sat sealed in an evidence storage unit for 18 years. Now they had a name to test against. The jacket was transferred to the state crime lab. Technicians ran touch DNA analysis, skin cells left behind through direct contact, from gripping fabric, adjusting a collar, holding a sleeve. The process took 2 weeks. When the results came back, they changed the entire shape of the case. Male DNA was recovered from the inside collar and both cuffs. It didn't match anyone in Renata's family. It didn't match her boyfriend. It didn't match any coach, teacher, or teammate from the original investigation. It matched one person, Vincent Slade, a man who had never been questioned, never listed as a person of interest, and whose name had appeared nowhere in 18 years of case files, until a father opened a yearbook on a Saturday morning and couldn't let go of a face. A warrant was secured within 48 hours. On a Thursday morning, unmarked vehicles pulled up in front of the pale green house on the north side of town. Officers knocked twice. Vincent came to the door. He didn't resist. He stepped aside without a word. The search of the bedroom produced a metal box under the bed, unlocked. Inside were photographs, old, curling at the edges. Most were taken at school, but several were different. One showed Renata walking across the east lawn, unaware, mid-stride, hair moving. And at the far edge of the frame, half hidden behind a tree trunk, stood a figure facing the camera directly. Vincent had photographed himself watching her. The photos also included folded notebook pages covered in handwritten poems. Handwriting analysis later confirmed they matched his. No confession in that box, no map, no explanation. But the pattern was now complete and documented across 2 decades. In the interrogation room at Meridian Falls County Jail, Vincent Slade sat across from 2 detectives, hands folded on the metal table, face unreadable. He waived his right to an attorney, say he had nothing to hide. For the first 20 minutes, he denied everything, didn't remember the yearbook photos, said the complaint form was a misunderstanding, said the varsity jacket must have been passed around or contaminated. His voice was flat and even throughout, not nervous, not defensive, just still. Then the photographs came out. One by one, the detectives slid them across the table, the candid shots through windows, the field day stills, the photographs taken from a distance across the lawn. And finally, the one that showed Renata walking unaware while Vincent stood half visible in the tree line behind her, face turned toward the lens he was holding. He stared at that one longer than the others. When he finally spoke again, it was barely above a whisper. He looked down at the table and said, "She shouldn't have run." He said nothing else. He sat back. He went completely still. The same stillness he had practiced for years at the edges of hallways and parking lots and 37 photographs. The detectives waited. He offered nothing more. The trial opened in June 2017 in a packed courtroom. The prosecution walked the jury through 18 years in sequence. The disappearance, the shoes left on the path, the stalled investigation, then the yearbook, the complaint form, the DNA match, the bedroom photographs, the handwritten poems, and finally, those 5 words spoken quietly in a jail interrogation room. The defense argued coincidence, said there was no body, no direct confession, no definitive proof, said obsession wasn't the same as guilt. The jury deliberated for 11 hours, guilty on both counts, kidnapping and second-degree murder. Vincent showed no reaction when the verdict was read. He stood straight and expressionless, the the same way he had always stood at the edge of photographs he was never meant to be in. The courtroom didn't erupt. It just breathed. A long, collective exhale from a community that had carried the question for nearly 2 decades and was finally, imperfectly, allowed to put part of it down. Renata's body was never recovered. No grave, no resting place, no physical goodbye. The case closed on paper, but a father without a grave to visit doesn't receive the same kind of closure as everyone else. Kofi Osei sat in the front row through the whole verdict and said nothing. When it was over, he walked out into the afternoon light and stood on the courthouse steps. Edmund stood beside him. Neither of them spoke. What happened to Renata Osei didn't begin on October 9th, 1998. It built slowly, across months of ignored glances and brushed-off conversations, and a guidance counselor's note scrawled quickly on the back of a formal written complaint. "Will monitor. Likely harmless," she told people. She adjusted her routes. She asked for company when she had never needed it before. She wrote it down, signed her name, and handed it to someone whose job was to act on it. And the response was, probably nothing. That is the part hardest to sit with. Not the evil of one person, but the accumulated ordinary failures of many small moments where someone decided it wasn't urgent enough. Where a boy watching from across the parking lot was just a boy who didn't know how to socialize. Where a girl's discomfort was filed and forgotten inside a folder, inside a drawer, inside a school that has long since moved on. Danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it stands quietly at the far edge of things, consistent and passive and easy to explain away. Sometimes it moves through the background of 37 yearbook photographs, and nobody sees it until it is 18 years too late. Renata had a scholarship waiting. She was going to be a lawyer. She was going to fight for people who didn't get second chances. She was 17 years old, and she already knew exactly what she was worth. She asked for help the only way she knew how to ask without making a scene. The scene happened anyway, just without her in it to explain. She wasn't silent. She spoke. We just weren't listening close enough.